Shalom Yasharala Yahweh, brother Malak. I'm back with a biblical lesson. I'm a man of many gifts and talents, but there's nothing like the gift of prophesying. There's nothing like the gift of prophesying, or there's nothing like prophecy. Amos 3:7, it says, surely the Lord God will do nothing. Yahweh will do nothing, but he reveals his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. Amos 3:7. Let's grab Ecclesiasticus chapter 3, verse 19. It says, many are in high places and of renown, but the mysteries, the secrets, are revealed unto the meek. For the power of Yahweh is great, and he is honored of the lowly. So this is why we can understand these biblical breakdowns and these prophecies. You know, the men and women, etc., that understands this doctrine, that understands that, you know, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Indians, you are the children of God. You are the Israelites, the historical biblical Israelites. You understand the breakdowns. You understand the prophecies and the precepts. You have truly been given the secrets, the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. But this topic is going to be more so about World War III. I don't know why the Spirit want me to touch there. I'm going to touch there. World War III. And I'm going to bring out the prophet Amos. Prophet Amos. Prophet, well, no, not, I just brought out Prophet Amos. Salak, I'm going to bring out our next prophet, Prophet Joel. Prophet Joel, because that's what's coming down the pike. World War III is prophesied. And it has to happen because this is the next, you know, the next plot in the movie. Who movie is this? This is Yahweh's movie. This is Yahweh's movie. Let's grab Sirach. Sirach chapter 18, which is the Apocrypha, Sirach, or the Ecclesiasticus. This is the Apocrypha. This is canon. These books are the Bible, but they took it out. The Bible Destruction Group took these books out of the Bible to hide further knowledge and wisdom. But Ecclesiasticus chapter 18, it says, he that lives forever created all things in general. That is Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. It says, the Lord only is righteous, and there is none other but he, who governs the world with the palm of his hand, and all things obey his will. For he is the king of all, by his power dividing holy things among them from profane. To whom have he given power to declare his works, and who shall find out his noble acts? Well, I just showed you who will find out his noble acts and discover his secret works. It's the prophets. It's the people that he have given the Ruach HaKadosh, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost, if you will, to understand these mysteries and these secrets of the kingdom of heaven. But Joel chapter 3 is an amazing chapter, because not only does it goes into World War III, but you realize that World War III has to happen before the release of the Israelites. I'll say that again. World War III has to happen because that is the hatch, the open hatch, if you will, to release the Israelites. You don't believe me? Then I'll read it and explain it to you. It says, Joel, the subheading says, judgment on Israel's enemies. I'll say that again. It says judgment on Israel's enemies. Psalms 83, 1 through 6 shows you the enemies of the house of Judah and the house of Israel. Joel chapter 3, it says, "For behold, in those days and at that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, that is the southern kingdom, that is the northern kingdom of the house of Judah and Israel." So Yahweh is the one that sent us into captivity because we kept going off. Right now, we find ourselves in these modern day, really captivities. Getting up, going to work, that's captivity. You got to have a license for everything, that's captivity. Working for a dollar bill, working for some money that's a dollar bill, if you will, that's not backed by any gold, any silver, any least of the metals, the precious metals, that's captivity. And guess whose face is on it? Render Caesar into what is Caesar, right? It's not. It's the Edomite. The Edomite face is on the money. Captivity. You're in captivity. But we've been telling you this. We've been telling you this. Y'all just catching on. It says Joel chapter 3. It says, for behold, in those days and at that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, that is the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. It says, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Yahweh-Shaphat. It says valley of Jehoshaphat, but it's really the valley of Yahweh-Shaphat in the ancient Paleo-Hebrew. It says, and will plead with them, therefore my people, and for my heritage Israel, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom, whom they have scattered among the heathen, the nations, and parted my land, and they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. It says, yeah, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, or Zidon, and all the coast of the Palestine? It says, will you render me a recompense? It says, and if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head. It says, because you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. And it tells you who's his silver and who's his gold. It says, the children also of Judah, you so-called blacks, Negroes, African Americans, Haitians, Jamaicans, we are the house of Judah. It says, and the children of Jerusalem, you so-called Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Native Indians, etc. You are the northern kingdom. It says, and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians. Who are the Grecians? The Grecians are the Greeks. And that would be the so-called Caucasians, so-called Caucasian man and woman, child, etc., teenager, etc., whatever. Those are the Edomites. They are the Edomites. The Greeks are the Edomites. And really, when you really do the history, when you really dig and do the research, you'll come to realize that the original Greeks were, I believe, the Japheth, the Japhites. The original Grecians they weren't even Caucasian. They weren't even white people, so-called white people. The original Grecians, the original Greeks were black people. Japheth, I believe they came from the seed of Japheth. The seed of Japheth, if I'm not mistaken. So look at that. And the deeper you go into history, the darker it gets. The deeper you dive into history, the darker it gets. The original Greeks were black people. But I digress. It says, behold, I will raise them up out of the place whither you have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. So this is what's coming towards not only just Esau. We always, you would think that we always bang on Esau, but that's because Esau is the arch. He's the arch nemesis, man. You got Batman. Batman is the Israelites. Joker is the Edomites. That's just what it is, man. Is these two family trees, these two bloodlines that have been at each other's neck since the womb of Mama Rebecca. And that's just what it is. These two nations, these two bloodlines, have been at each other's neck since the manifestation in Mama Rebecca's womb, Jacob and Esau. The eagle versus the lion versus the eagle. And that's just what it is. So, Batman would be the Israelites, Joker would be the Edomites, Superman would be the Israelites, and, Lex Luthor would be the Edomites. Spider-Man would be the Israelites, and then the Green Goblin would be the Edomites. That's just the analogy. That's just a perfect analogy, actually. It says, and I will sell your sons and your daughters. So Yahweh, the Father, he ultimately put us in captivity for going off, for not keeping the commandments, and for following the heathens, for following these heathen nations, these Gentile nations. That's how we ended up in the predicament that we ended up in, or, for the most part that we're in. But he's going to turn this all the way around. This is why it's called judgment on Israel's enemies. He's going to change this all the way around. He's going to change this all the way around. It says, Joel chapter 3, verse 8. It says, and I will sell your sons and your daughters. So Yahweh, he's getting ready to sell their sons and their daughters, the nations, just like they sold our sons and our daughters. Hey man, you got a problem with it? Take it up with God. That's just what it is. Take it up with God. It says, and this is that bitterness of the truth. This is that bitterness of the gospel that people don't like to deal with. They don't like this part. Everybody likes the new bodies, the chariots, peace, happiness, a new kingdom. Yahweh coming back. Yahweh's coming back. The angels. They like all of the sweet parts. Everybody loves the sweet parts of everything, but nobody likes the bitterness. Nobody wants to talk about the bitterness. Nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to dabble on that. But who does? The prophets, the true servants, the true prophets of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. We talk about it. We touch on it. We explain it. You have to eat the whole roll, as Ezekiel, or as I don't know if that was Yahweh that told Ezekiel that, or that was Ezekiel that said that, but I believe it was Yahweh that told Ezekiel that eat this. Yeah, it was Yahweh that told Ezekiel, prophet Ezekiel, to eat the whole roll. You got to eat the whole roll. You got to eat the sweet part and the bitter part of this roll. And that's the bitter part. The nations are going into captivity for what they have done against the children of God. That's just what it is. It says, Joel chapter 3, verse 8, it says, and I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord hath spoken it. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. It says, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. It says, beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all you heathen, you Gentiles, and gather yourselves together. So this is why World War III is major prophecy. It has to happen. It has to happen, because it's the only way the Israelites can be released according to prophecy. Not only that prophecy, but the prophecy of the mark of the beast. Those are the two major prophecies that we're waiting on: the mark of the beast and World War III. It says, Joel chapter 3, verse 12, it says, let the heathen, the Gentile nations, all of those nations that have taken crafty counsel against the children of Israel, against the children of Judah, it's literally right there. All of the nations have had a hand in her spoils. It tells you that. What nation has not had hand in her spoil? That's in the Apocrypha. See, this is the bitterness that people don't like to talk about. This is the bitterness that people wants to ignore. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear the bitterness, but they want to hear the sweetness. They want to hear the sweet parts. In a relationship, You got to deal with everything in a relationship, right? You got to deal with the good of a person, and you got to deal with the bad of a person. You got to deal with the things that you don't like in a person. You got to deal with the things that you do like in a person. That's what makes the relationship a relationship, right? That's how that's just what it is, right? Negatives, positives, pros, cons. Weigh them out. Work it out. This is the bitterness of the scrolls, of the scriptures. And people don't like to deal with this. But like I said, the true prophets, the true apostles, the true servants, we're going to touch on it. We're going to deal with it because Yahweh Shai comes in the volume of the book. In the whole volume of the book. You got to eat that roll, swallow that roll. You got to take the bitterness with the sweetness with the bitterness. You got to eat the whole roll. You got to touch and dwell on everything in the Bible. And that's what's coming. The nations, the Gentile nations, they're going into captivity. That's just what it is, man. It's prophecy. It says, and they know this. They know it. It tells you that the elder shall serve the younger. 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 Joel chapter 3, it says, let the heathen be weakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh-Shaphat. It says, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about, the Gentiles. It says, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. It says, come get ye down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for the wickedness is great. It says, multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near upon Salak. It says, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. This is World War III talk. This is prophetic talk through the prophet of Joel. It says, the sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. And the heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be with the hope of his people, which are the Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Indians, of his people. It says, in the strength of the children of Israel. It says, so shall ye know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her any more. And it shall come to pass in that day that the mountain shall drop down new wine, and the hills shall flow with milk. This is the kingdom of heaven. It says, and all the rivers of Judah shall flow with waters, and the fountain shall come forth out of the house of Yahweh, and shall water the valley of Shittim. It says, Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness, for the violence against the children of Judah, Israel, because they have shed innocent blood, and they do that to this day. Through the food system, through the medical system. I don't even feel like dwelling on it. You know what's up. You know the deal. It's prophecy. It says, but Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed, for the Lord dwelleth in Zion. It's just what it is, man. So this is why World War III has to come, because Yahweh is going to bring the judgment upon the nations for what they have done against the children of Israel, his people, the Israelites. And where is that going to take place? That was Prophet Joel chapter 3, and that's going to take place in the next prophecy, which is Revelations chapter 18. Mystery Babylon, man. Mystery Babylon. Mystery Babylon, which is no longer a mystery. We know what Babylon is. Babylon is, quote unquote, America. America is Babylon. America is Babylon. It's no longer a mystery. And the judgment, we're reading the prophecies. The judgment is set against Babylon, which is America. And that's in Revelations 18. Hold tight, Yasharala Yahweh. So yeah, Revelation 18. Let's you got to eat the sweetness of the roll, and you got to eat the bitterness of the roll. Nobody likes the bitterness of the roll. You know, nobody likes that. Do you throw out the baby, or do you throw out the dirty bath water that came off? You know, do you throw out the baby, or do you throw out the dirty bath water from washing the baby? You know, that's just what it is, man. It's the same analogy. You got to deal with the sweetness of the scriptures, and you got to deal with the bitterness of the scriptures. Nobody likes the bitterness, but you know, the prophets, that's why they're out there on those highways and hedges. When we're out there bringing out the bitterness of the scriptures, when we're on the social sites, bringing out the bitterness of the scriptures, when we word to mouth, bringing out the bitterness of the scriptures, that bitterness. The bitterness. But Revelation chapter 18, it says, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. It says, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. It says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of her wrath, of her fornication. It says, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. You know, America sits you know, the waysides, they sit on the water for import and export, you know, shipments. So they deal with the other nations. This is how we know that Revelations 18 is talking about America. It says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come up out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. It says, for her sins have reached into heaven, and Yahweh has remembered her iniquities. It says, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double into her double according to her works, and the cup which she hath filled to her double. It says, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her, for she said in her spirit, her heart, her mind, I sit as a queen. That's because no one has attacked America yet. No one has bombed America. But America is always in foreign lands bombing everybody else. So, you know, that's the analogy, that she sits as a queen. She sits as a virgin. She hasn't been, you know, thrust through. It says, for her sins have reached into heaven, but Yahweh is watching. This is why Yahweh says that Babylon, America, has been a golden cup in his hand. Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, because he's sitting and he's watching. You know, as the prophecy says, that man hides his hand from other men. It's a prophecy, a precept. I can't grab it. It says that men hide from men, but they have no roughly paraphrase. This is roughly paraphrase. Basically, men hide from men, you know, but whatever they can hide from men, they can't hide from Yahweh. They can't hide from God. That's the way the prophecy goes. So you can be sneaky and be deceptive and hide, you know, from man and whatnot, but you can't hide from God, because he sees everything. He knows everything. He sees the secret details. Roughly paraphrased. It says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come up out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. It says, for her sins have reached into heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. It says, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double into her double according to her works, and the cup which she hath filled to her double. It says, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. You know, you come to America, they call it the land of opportunity. You know, it's the land of opportunity for the heathens, for the Gentiles. Because when it comes to, you know, the Israelites, they got all of these measures to oppress and suppress the children of God. But you may have certain Israelites that, that Yahweh allows to, you see come up, I gather, touch a little coin, I gather. But for the most part, this is, for the heathens, the Gentiles. They live deliciously. They live deliciously here. They live good here. It says how much she have glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much more torment and sorrow give her. For she says in her spirit, I sit as a queen, and I am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord Yahweh who judgeth. It says, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication, these are all of the other nations that's in cahoots, that's in league with America. It says, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her. And that's going to happen when America is finally destroyed through World War III. It says, when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, at last, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is her judgment come. And this is how we know that when Yahweh comes with the chariots and the angels and the elect get beamed up in that heavenly host. The perfect movie, man, is Independence Day. Independence Day is the perfect movie. But it's going to take 1 hour for Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to destroy this place. As it states right here, it says in 1 hour, that great city Babylon, 1 hour is your judgment come. It says, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buys their merchandise anymore. It says, the merchandise of gold, silver, and precious stones and pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet, all of these, great goodly things. It says, and cinnamon and odors and ornaments and frankincense, etc., etc. Dropping down to verse, I'm going to drop down to verse 14. It says, and the fruits that your soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. So the merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. It says, and saying, at last, that great city, which is America, Babylon, it says, that was cloth and fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stone and pearls. This is for in 1 hour. So it tells you that twice. So Yahweh is making that known twice. He says in 1 hour. He says in 1 hour. He says in 1 hour in verse 10. And then he says in 1 hour in verse 17. 1 hour. It says in 1 hour so great riches has come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sellers and as many as trade by sea stood afar off. So we get the point, man. We get the drift of Revelations 18. So that's World War III. That's prophetic. Joel chapter 3, when Yahushua brings the nations, eventually he's going to bring the nations to war one another. And that's going to cause the domino effect of Revelations chapter 18. It's all biblical prophecy. And that's just our plight. That's our plight. Those men, and really the men who has been given the foreshadow of prophesying, to see the plight, to see what's coming down the pike, more so. Yeah, man. Joel chapter 3, Revelations 18. I could go into some more prophecies on World War III. Let's grab, what is that? Isaiah. Is that Isaiah 51, or is that what? That's Jeremiah 51. Prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah 51. Jeremiah 51. Jeremiah 51. Like I say, man, the Bible is rated R. When you really understand these prophecies, these scrolls, and understand the accounts, and understand everything in these Bible, man, the 144% truth, the 144,000 that gets this truth, the elect. The Bible is rated R. The Bible is rated R, man. It's a rated R movie, man. Can't get past it. It says, I'll read a little bit of Jeremiah 51. It says, thus said the Lord, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind. What is that destroying wind? That's those nukes. The Bible talks about the nukes. The Bible talks about every single thing in life. Every single aspect, every single topic in life, the Bible touches on, talks about. It says a destroying wind, it says a destroying wind. Those are those nukes, my guy. Those are the nukes. It says a destroying wind. It says, and I will send into Babylon fanners. America is code word Babylon. If you don't know, now you know. America is America. Cold word Babylon. Cold red, Babylon. Jeremiah 51, it says, now I'll end it with this, Yashrala Yahweh. It says, Jeremiah 51, it says, thus said Yahweh, behold, I will raise up against Babylon, America, and against them that dwell in the midst of them, that rise up against me, a destroying wind. It says, and I will send into Babylon fanners, man, nukes. A destroying wind, fanners. This is parabolic, figurative talk, metaphoric talk for nukes. That's what nukes. Nuclear warfare. It says, and I will send it to Babylon fanners, and it says that shall fan her and shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. It says, against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow. How's the archer going to send a what's the name all the way across the water? You can't send a regular arrow all the way across the water. I mean, they can try, but I don't think it will work. It says the archer bend his bow. It says the archer bend his bow. It says, and against him that lifteth himself up in the brigandine, and spare ye not her young men, young women, young children, etc., etc. It says, destroy ye utterly all of her hosts. So yeah, man, I ain't gonna really read the whole chapter, but that's touching on World War III prophecies, man. It's prophetic. But, with that, I'm going to say, Call Halam La Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakak Kadash. The releasing of the Israelites is going to come with World War III, as these prophecies state. Shalom.